It's Friday, October 1st, and this is now on H&N.
I think we're going to continue to see the death rates rise.
September ended on a grim note in the fight against COVID. More details on the deadliest month of the pandemic in Hawaii.
So right now, the feeling of our community is relief because it's back where it resides here in the Halemaumau Crater.
Visitors are flocking to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park to catch a glimpse of the dramatic fiery show created by a new eruption at the summit of Kilauea.
An announcement that tens of thousands of Australians around the world have been waiting some 18 months for.
Plus, another one of Hawaii's major tourism markets is starting to open back up. Details from Down Under coming up on This Is Now. Good afternoon. Thanks for watching. This is Now on this Friday. Well, September was the deadliest month for COVID-related deaths since the start of the pandemic in the state. And this being the first day of October, we have even more fatalities to report.
7 more Hawaii residents have died after contracting COVID-19. 6 are on Oahu, 5 women and 1 man ranging in age from their 40s to their 80s, and a Big Island man in his 40s. DOH is also reporting 366 new COVID infections today. We have the breakdown by island on our digital platforms. Back to those September numbers, 193 COVID patients died last month. Hawaii's latest surge of cases, mostly all from the Delta variant, peaked in August to early September when the case counts were in the 800s. Experts say high death rates lag about 2 to 4 weeks behind high case counts, and they say when people die from the virus, it's usually about 17 to 18 days on average after their first symptoms. Here's Tim Brown, Senior Fellow at the East West Center.
We can expect to see the deaths continuing for some time. I mean, normally, if you actually look at the data that's available, what we tend to find is there's about a 2 to 4 week delay between the cases and the deaths. And that varies depending on who's collecting the data, where it is, what the stage of the epidemic is, and so on. But that tends to be about it. And that's really just a reflection of the natural history of COVID infection in the body. I mean, a number of studies have looked at, for example, time from diagnosis to death or time from symptoms to death. And typically what they find is the average is somewhere around 17 to 18 days from the time you start developing symptoms or get diagnosed until you die. And sometimes a little bit longer, sometimes shorter. I mean, sometimes as short as, I think, 2 days, some of the studies have seen, sometimes as long as 59 days or longer. So, some people basically will stay on a ventilator, for example, for a very long time before they finally pass away. So there's a lot of variability in this, but on average, it's typically about 2.5 to 3 weeks.
All right, let's get the latest on what's happening with the eruption that's still ongoing on the Big Island. We're joined now by Casey Lund. Hey, Casey, give us an update. I can hear you've been reporting that we can now see that lava lake starting to rise, so you can actually get a visual on it, right?
Yes, but it's nothing compared to the visuals that we've been getting into the newsroom from USGS HVO. But it was an exciting moment last night when we heard you could see a little sliver of lava from a platform here at Kilauea's summit, right by Jagger Museum. You really had to get up on your tippy toes, but people have been coming by all day long, and it's just exciting because they've only been able to see the glow before this. So now they can actually see some lava, and I can't tell if it's a fissure, but just at least a little bit of movement. And when you see that and realize what's creating that glow, you see people's eyes light up when they witness that. Again, it's rather impressive even when we zoom in, but it's just exciting when we were able to bring the first live pictures of lava into the newsroom that we didn't get from USGS. Again, pretty minor, but very exciting.
And I know you've been talking to businesses. We usually see some sort of bounce back or tick up in revenue for those businesses in the volcano area and in the area of the national parks. What have they been saying?
Well, you know, Volcano is a relatively sleepy town, and it still is, but it's a little less sleepy now that more people have been coming up here. We actually stayed at Kilauea Lodge, an awesome place. They have really good food. We were able to stay there in between all the work we've been doing. We went into the restaurant because we've checked in with them when we've been here in eruptions past to see if they got an influx. The manager there, well, this is what she had to say after a really tough few months of the pandemic.
With the eruption happening last night, our phone was nonstop. It's been ringing off the hook today, really. So we're full. Our rooms are full tonight. We're filling up for this weekend as well. More people. It's a win-win for everybody. It really is.
So, Casey, I also wanted to ask you about what Puna residents might be thinking. I know this eruption is not taking place there. It's all up at the summit, but it has to bring back some feelings from that devastation. You've been talking to people about that, right?
Oh, you know, the hundreds of people, the hundreds of families that lost their home in the 2018 eruption, you can't help but think that every time that there's any kind of lava returning to Halemaumau, they must have some kind of feeling of worry or concern in their stomach. But we actually spoke to Ikaika Marzo, who really put things into context about the community members, as he's from Puna, and so many people looked up to him looking for information during the 2018 eruption. This is what he had to say about sort of the vibe of the community right now with this eruption.
So right now, you know, the feeling of our community is relief because it's back where it resides here in the Halemaumau Crater. It's not coming out of the Leilani Estates or any place else in Kalapana or Pu'o. So there's a lot of sense of relief, but also there's a lot of newcomers that come here and move here from the mainland, and they're just like, what's going on? Should I get insurance for my house? And they live on like O'Kala on the north part of this island. So there's mixed feelings, but for the people in general that lives here for a long time, it's a sense of relief that it's back in Halemaumau.
Definitely really good to hear from him as well, Casey. Any last takeaways you want to mention to our viewers here on This Is Now?
You know, this is such a busy place. There's so many things going on. There's visitors coming in. There's people coming to see this from all over the world. But one thing that I always try to remind myself of when we're doing live shots, talking to people, talking to scientists, is that this is a sacred place for Native Hawaiians, and so many people are deeply connected to this land and to the lava, Halemaumau Crater, and when it returns, Kilauea, it means something different to them. And so I always try to urge visitors when they come here, as well as the National Park Service does, to be respectful of that and mindful of that when you visit, and be safe overall. Jonathan?
Excellent reporting, Casey. We'll check in with you sometime soon, later in evening editions of H&N. Have a great day.
The new eruption is also producing lightweight volcanic glass and fibers known as Pele's hair. The National Weather Service says several pilots reported seeing it near the summit. These are file photos of it. It's dangerous stuff. The particles can cause skin and eye irritation, and you should definitely not breathe it in. And we just got an update from a scientist at the Hawaii Volcanoes Observatory. Here is Frank Trusdell with the latest.
The reason why from last night comparative to this morning, it didn't look like the lava had risen that high is because basically we're in a funnel. And so for every increment of lava that you're adding, you have to cover a larger surface area, so that in order to get a substantial rise, if the funnel is expanding at a high rate, the incremental addition of lava is quite small, and so it will take more time for it to become visible as the days go on. So we monitor the volcano. We have instruments all over it, and the only signs of activity are right here in the summit. There are no signs along the East Rift Zone or in Lower Puna or along the Southwest Rift Zone. All the volcanic related seismicity and ground deformation is right up here at Halemaumau and in the caldera.
And we will have continuing coverage of the new Kilauea eruption on air and online on all your H&N digital platforms.
Within weeks, vaccinated Australians will be allowed to travel overseas. The government announced it's opening back up its international borders. This is a big deal because it is a big travel market for the state. Let's turn it over now to CNN's Angus Watson with all the details.
An announcement that tens of thousands of Australians around the world have been waiting some 18 months for as the coronavirus pandemic has raged. Those Australians growing increasingly desperate to get back home as Australia has persisted with a system of caps on the numbers of Australians and residents allowed into the country each week. On Friday, Prime Minister of Australia Scott Morrison said those caps would be scrapped. The borders of the country would be thrown open, inviting Australians from overseas back into the country as well as residents, but only if they've been double vaccinated. Those people will be allowed to quarantine for 7 days at home. Unvaccinated Australians and residents can still come in, but there'll be a cap on that number and they'll have to quarantine in state-managed isolation as people do now. Now, this shift from the government is a reflection of the Australian government's desire to live with the virus instead of pursuing this COVID zero policy, which has seen the borders closed. The Australian government says that that saved many lives and isolated Australia from the pandemic as best it could, but it's hit the economy and it's kept people away from their homes and from their loved ones. So some weeks to go perhaps until we find out whether tourists will be invited back to Australia in the coming months. For now, November is the time that so many Australians around the world will set to be able to return home for the first time perhaps in the pandemic. Angus Watson, CNN, Sydney.
U.S. Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh tested positive for COVID-19 last night. The Supreme Court says he's fully vaccinated and does not have any symptoms. Earlier in the week, he tested negative along with the other justices. The Supreme Court is slated to return to the bench for the start of its new term on Monday.
As we first told you yesterday on This Is Now, a government shutdown has been avoided, but there's a disagreement among Democrats on the president's agenda. We talked to Representative Ed Case about this morning on Sunrise.
I want to start off by talking about that infrastructure bill, that $1 trillion one. I know late last night the vote was delayed. I wanted to ask you, will there be a vote today and will you support this bill?
I completely support this bill. That's been my number one focus for months now. This is a bill that would be the largest infrastructure investment in our country's history. It would generate about 2 million jobs throughout our country. It means about $2 billion to Hawaii and thousands of jobs. It has already passed the Senate. It just needs one vote in the House to go to the president. It's wildly popular throughout the country because of the size of the investment and because it's an example of Congress being able to do its job. And so my full commitment has been to getting that vote on that bill.
You say that this bill is popular. So what is the delay? Why does this keep happening?
Well, some people out there in the country want to link this bill to another bill. They don't want this bill to pass, at least until the other bill passes or looks to have a good chance at passage, the so-called reconciliation bill. And they're holding this up. And I've said for months that I think that's exactly the wrong strategy on a number of fronts. I think it's the wrong approach for the country. I think we need to get this infrastructure money out into the country. And I'd love to get it to Hawaii to create those jobs and boost our, crumbling infrastructure. And this is also about climate change. There's tremendous amounts of money in here for climate resiliency, for responses to climate change in Hawaii. And so I have not been on the same page with them.
Congressman, I just want to be really clear about this. You support that $1 trillion infrastructure bill. You've been very clear on that. Now, the second larger bill, that $3.5 trillion Build Back Better bill, that is something that you have been reportedly hesitant on. Now, is that true?
Well, I haven't been hesitant on passing a reconciliation bill. That's not true. There's a lot of misinformation about that out there. I've always said that I supported a reconciliation bill with many, many very positive programs in it that I support and that I think a majority of my constituents and the country support. But, I'm focused here in Congress on the practicalities of what you can actually pass in Congress. Very, very slim majorities in both the House and the Senate. The other party is not going to help at all on reconciliation. And so you've got to find the sweet spot where you can actually get everybody on the same page to pass reconciliation. I happen to believe, and I think that everything that's happening today proves me out, and I've felt this way for a long time, that it's unrealistic to talk at a $3.5 trillion figure, whatever you might want. And so I'm trying to get that bill done, but I think we've got to get real about what it's going to take to get it done. And I do not want to wait around on the $1 trillion reconciliation until we figure out the other bill.
So basically, to boil this down, your concern is that you don't want to link these two gigantic bills together. You want to get that $1 trillion passed by itself, correct?
Correct. I don't want to link them. And I think that, by the way, the delay on the $1 trillion infrastructure bill has actually hurt its chances of passage. And so I've also been concerned that delay and linkage will risk the first one, which is ready to go.
So the ad campaign that we've been talking about, our Hawaii Action, is behind this. Now, you're saying that there's no truth to this ad campaign?
Well, they disagree with me on linkage, so let's start there. They're clearly attacking me on the basis of my belief that we should pass the bipartisan $1 trillion bill now. They clearly feel that we should not do that, and they're frankly trying to leverage that against 3.5 trillion, which, as I already said, is unrealistic. I'm trying to get them both done. So I don't, they can disagree with me on that. We do disagree. What I object to is very, very specific misleading statements in their ad campaign that do not reflect my record at all. So that's a different matter to me. And as a matter of fact, they've already had to retract some of what they put in their ad campaign because I pointed out to them it was incorrect. For example, they claim that I would not be, willing to rescind the Trump tax cuts in order to pay for some of reconciliation. I mean, that's patently false, and I pointed it out to them, and they pulled that. And there's other stuff in the ad. So, hey, I can take somebody disagreeing with me, but I'm going to call it out if they're disagreeing with me unfairly or, frankly, deliberately misleading the people out there.
Your mail could take longer to get to you under a new plan that starts today. The Postmaster General is slowing some deliveries and raising prices to balance the Postal Service's budget, but critics say it could cause serious damage. Earl Barnett has more.
I've been coming up here every week asking, where's my mail?
Marissa Taylor relies on the post office to deliver her paychecks that she uses to take care of her two siblings with special needs.
They keep giving me the same answer, which is, oh, you have a new driver, it'll be out today. You don't get mail that day.
Taylor went without mail for days over the summer, and new changes from the U.S. Postal Service mean more delays could be in her future. In March, Postmaster General Louis DeJoy announced a new 10-year plan that promises to cut debt and modernize the agency.
We haven't been funded in 10 years. You can't pass any legislation that helps. If I could just finish this point.
But it comes at a cost. Almost 40% of first-class mail could take up to 5 days to arrive instead of up to 3 days. And sending holiday cheer will be pricier as well, with postage rates increasing up to $5 more per package until December 26th.
I see a bright future ahead for the Postal Service.
DeJoy has been a controversial head of the Postal Service since June of 2020. Before the election, the former businessman and top GOP donor made changes to the service, including removing mailboxes. Many rallied nationwide against what they saw as voter suppression. And earlier this year, 21 state attorneys general asked the Postal Regulatory Commission to reject the new plan, saying it could disproportionately impact elderly and rural residents as well as individuals with disabilities.
These cuts, plain and simple, are illegal.
Now, we should also highlight that many Americans rely on this service for the delivery of their medicines. CBS News spoke with one man who's already experienced delays in receiving his heart and behavioral medications, and he's now concerned that will happen more often. If you're also worried, the general advice is to send things a few days early or consider another service. Errol Barnett, CBS News, Washington.
All right, let's talk about the weather, guys, and taking you live outside from our tower cam downtown. Looking beautiful today. Here's Billy V in for Guy Hoggy with the check of your weekend.
Happy Aloha Friday. I'm Billy B sitting in for Guy Hockey. Let's go ahead and take a look at your weather for the weekend. We'll start with the waves first. And for those that like to go, like Lynn Kawano up to the North Shore, 2 to 4 feet, a little bit of a pulse today. They're going to get a reinforcing swell on Saturday. So there's going to be extended time of having North Shore waves here in the 1st of October. Swell is going to be peaking over on the south facing shores and over on the east side's 2 to 4 choppy. West side small 1 to 3, but they're going to get some of that North Shore wraparound. Your UV index is at 9. time. Let's take a look at the rain forecast. We'll show you. It's going to be a mixture of sunshine, nice breezy wind conditions, and trade showers. Windward and Malka showers drifting leeward at times as we move throughout the broadcast week. There you go with Wednesday, Thursday. You just see wave after wave of those trade wind showers coming through. 7-day forecast for you. Friday today, northeasterly winds 10 to 20 miles per hour. Breezy conditions, daytime high near 88 degrees. And take a look at this. There's a little bit of a bump up on the winds on Saturday, and then you've got pretty much steady conditions Wednesday and Thursday. Those winds are going to be 15 to 25 miles per hour with gusts possibly up to 40 miles per hour. Whatever you're doing, take us along with you. And just a reminder, get the latest on air, online, on your mobile device, and at HawaiiNewsNow.com.
Thank you very much, Billy. Let's see what the internet is buzzing about on this TGIF Friday. And we're talking Scarlett Johansson, and there's involved in that big lawsuit suit with Disney over Black Widow, the movie, because she was upset because she did not receive portions of box office sales that she was planning because she was contracted to do so. And of course, they released it mainly on Disney Plus, the movie Black Widow. She had argued that that reduced the size of the portion of she would have gotten for her big paycheck. So they came to terms, and they did not disclose the details of that settlement. But we do know both the actress and the company say they will plan to work together soon on a new movie called Tower of Terror, which I assume is based off of the ride Tower of Terror. I know they did Jungle Cruise with The Rock, so it's sort of bizarre doing these movies based off rides, but interesting idea.
Oh, yeah, I'd watch it.
Yeah, I like Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah.
Great actress. You guys, let's get to some good news, and we want to end on a positive note with our safe eruption that's happening over on the Big Island. Billy V put together this little video montage to a very famous poem about lava. Let me play it out.
The poem called There Really Is a Pele by L.R. McBride. Yes, there really is a Pele. Her home is a yawning pit in the top of Kilauea, the most active volcano in the world. She shows herself on the summit of the mountain, young and lovely, dancing in all her glory. She is the essence of beauty in the geysers of fluid lava gushing from the depths of the earth. She is the ever-changing pattern of pulsing red and incandescent yellow in fiery fountains, squirting high into the blue smoke above a lurid lake. She paints the billowing clouds of night with the glow from rivers of rock. Her eyes flash in the grumbling summer storms. She stirs, and the island trembles in expectation. Pele is real. She is the eruption spirit of Hawaii's volcanoes.
Whoa. Billy, that voice.
I know, so soothing.
I know. Great poem, too. And I think it was written middle part of last century, and it was a book that someone actually gave me, and then I shared it with Billy, and he recorded that in a previous eruption.
I love it.
Yeah, and we put together a little montage with current eruption video there. You guys, we're going to have a lot more eruption coverage coming up on First at 4. Casey Lund's putting together another report that will air at the 4 p.m. show, including the sound and stuff he's gathering from the Big Island. Also wanted to let you know there's a press conference coming up in just a little bit at 1:30, so just over an hour away from now, with Governor Ige. We're not exactly sure what he's going to discuss, but it's something COVID related, and we're going to bring that to you on all your H&N Digital platforms live, so you can watch that right here from the H&N Digital Center. Wow, what a busy week, and I'm glad to say happy Aloha Friday, everyone, and I hope you have a good weekend. We'll be back here on Monday with This Is Now, and again, a reminder, Ashley's back here at 4 o'clock for First at 4. Don't forget to download the H&N streaming app to your TV in case you miss anything. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Happy Aloha Friday.